Okay, hello everybody. As she said, my name is Olivia. It's a tough act to follow. I have never followed a very in-depth, fascinating, intellectual look into culture and humor. I want to give you a heads up. We went from a Dutch researcher who's very smart to an American comedian. So the night is not going to get smarter from here. So just emotionally prepare yourselves for that, however you need to. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I have been in the Netherlands for a few years now. In the before times, I worked as a bartender and a server. I was not good at it, but that's okay because this is the Netherlands, so it doesn't matter. And I have to say, as an American, I feel like the Dutch approach to service is genius, okay? I know that you get a lot of grief for it, but I love it so much. I think it's brilliant because in America, when you work in service, you live on tips. So your relationship with your customers is super unhealthy. So like if I was serving like you in America, this is how it would go, okay? You would come in and I would be like, hi, how are you doing? Are you doing really good? You having like a really good night? Okay. I have a fun fact for you. I'm gonna be your server tonight. Woo! I know. I know it's exciting. It's hard to get over. Okay, so tell me a little bit about you. Are you two here together? You're here together? Okay, so is it like a special occasion or is it just a regular Friday? It's just a regular one? Good for you. Oh, I love you already. Okay. So now, what else do you want? Do you want like French fries? Do you want a soda? Do you want me to dance for you? Do you want to hit me with your car? Because that's on the table tonight if necessary, okay? Whereas in the Netherlands, as a server, you can walk up to a table like, hey, what's up, motherfuckers? These are the menus. Now listen to me. We both know I don't need you. So why don't you tell me what you want? And I'll spend tonight deciding if I want to bring it to you. I love it. I think it's incredible. There are other jobs where maybe some aspects of Dutch culture lend themselves a tiny bit less well to success. Hear me out, okay? It's just the way my Dutch therapist talks to me. I don't want to call it bullying, but it's pretty fucking close, okay? Like at my first appointment with her, my intake appointment, I started crying, and she looks at me and she goes, you have a lot of feelings, don't you? That is a real thing my Dutch therapist said to me. And I was like, I get it, Annemieke, okay? You missed your usual Dutch appointment, right? Where Jordan comes in and he's like, Annemieke, I've had a terrible week. And she's like, what happened? And he's like, I almost had a feeling, right? And she's like, oh, please tell me about it. And he's like, well, I was cycling and a woman got in my way. And I yelled at her in Dutch. And then she yelled back at me in English. And I realized she was American and she couldn't understand me. And it's just like, how will she know I think she's a cancer whore, you know? What are you gonna do? Okay, I recognize, I know as an American, it's crazy for me to make fun of Dutch people, right? Like that's insane, okay? And I just wanna say, this is all I have, okay? I need this. It has been a rough 250 years. I'd say, especially the last 5 has been a very difficult time. Not great. Maybe that's an understatement. It's been terrible. And it's a trip growing up in America because they tell you things like, we're the greatest country on earth. And you're all gonna go out to the world and you're gonna take over because you're incredible. And then you turn 18 and you go to Europe for the first time and you're like, I'm from America and we're the best. And Europeans are like, oh, honey, sit down. And one kind of unforeseen aspect of this year has been that I'm identifying with my grandparents. All of my grandparents immigrated from Europe to America, from fairly extreme poverty and difficulty in search of better opportunities, better lives for themselves, easier lives for themselves and future generations. And now, with COVID, barely 2 generations later, I am writing exactly the same letters home that my grandparents were writing like 60 years ago, right? I'm like, "Dear mother, I know you're trapped in the home country, but I will try to bring you and father over shortly. Don't worry about me. The bread is plentiful in the Netherlands, and the people are very tall. I will try to send money home on Sunday, provided the plague doesn't take me before that." So it's interesting. And we haven't really gotten that many chances to celebrate. We had like 2 weeks where we were like, "Trump is gone!" And then we were all like, "Oh, it's Biden. What are we going to do with that?" It's like we're all being collectively haunted by like a handsy centrist ghost. And he keeps trying to convince us he's a cool guy. He's like, "I have a black friend," and we're like, "His name is Obama, and he was literally your boss." Okay, relax, Joe. I also had I've had a real mixed reaction to the fact that America, while it has fumbled every part of the pandemic, is crushing it with vaccines, right? They are doing an amazing job, which I did not see coming. And I have, admittedly, I have slightly mixed feelings about it. Of course, I'm glad people are safe. That's amazing. That's great. I'm so glad that everybody's doing well. However, when I moved to Europe, I was promised, implicitly or not, that I would get to feel superior to every American I know. And that has not happened thus far, okay? I had like 1 good year, and now I have to watch, can you hear me? Closer? Further, oh gosh. I'm sorry, everybody. I got too close to you there via the internet. Should I stick around here? Is that good? Amazing. Okay. What was I talking about? Oh, right, America. That's all I talk about. I was not expecting, after a year of the pandemic, to then watch all of the girls who bullied me in high school, who have never left 5 miles of where we grew up, get vaccinated and go on vacation to Mexico. And it's not that I resent them. It's just, I do resent them. I resent them. I think that it's unfair, okay? It's not great. I know it's coming. It's going to come eventually, but I'm just really salty while it's happening. And it's interesting going to international shows, like comedy shows here, because the 2 groups that get made fun of the most at Dutch, like international comedy shows, are Dutch people and Americans. But the difference in how they're made fun of is pretty stark. So, like an international comedian will get on stage and they'll be like, "Boy, Dutch people, huh? I moved to your country because it's largely better than mine in every single way. But boy, aren't you all tall and hot and kind of weird about money, And then they'll get on stage and they'll be like, "Oh, are there any Americans here?" And they'll be like, "Yeah." And they'll be like, "You should burn your country to the ground." You're like, okay, slight tonal shift in terms of the cultural jokes that we're making, but that's fine, that's okay. You're not wrong, okay? Sorry, I'm too close again. I just keep getting pulled towards the camera. You're not wrong, probably we should collectively start over. I'd say that the experiment has failed, but that's okay. And moving to Europe as an American is it's really cool if you enjoy always being slightly condescended to. But that's fine. I'm used to that because I'm a woman. So it's not that new or interesting. And I do think that most Americans could probably stand to be a little bit humbled by now. American exceptionalism is a very real thing, as I discussed before. However, I have discovered the cure for it. It is beyond moving to Europe. The cure for American exceptionalism is living with a French woman. Nothing will emotionally devastate you more than that. I had a French roommate for a while, and she was amazing. She was so beautiful in like an effortless way. And I have a 10-step skincare routine to get this garbage red American face. And I was always like, oh, what do you do? And she's like, oh, I just splash a little bit of dirty dishwater on my face, and then it takes care of itself. You know? She's way smarter than me. She speaks 3 languages fluently. She's a real corporate job. She wears like blazers to work. She looks cute in oversized sweaters, which is a skill I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. Do you know what I look like in oversized sweaters? It's like of a husky 4-year-old when digging in their weird dead uncle's closet. It's not great. And she's so cute in it, and she's incredibly nice. And the worst thing about it, do you know what her name is? Her name is Olivia, which is my name. So I was living with a younger, smarter, hotter, nicer version of myself. And yeah, that's the second worst part, is I couldn't even be like, oh, one day I'll try to be like her when I grow up, because she was younger than me. So it was like we were constantly living in a Christmas carol. And I was the ghost of Christmas yet to come, here to show her what could happen if she makes all the wrong choices in her life. I moved to the Netherlands knowing nobody. Like, I had truly no connections, no job, no plan whatsoever. And it's hard to explain yourself from scratch to people. Like, you can do your basic things like, I need to make people laugh in order to feel good about myself. Like, that's fine. But then there's more complicated backstory that you get into later. And I come from a very complicated family. And complicated in some of the normal ways that like dark families kind of are. Like, there's a lot of mental illness and addiction generally, generational trauma. But then there's also more unique things, like in university, I almost accidentally dated my cousin, because he's from the wealthy front family, and I'm from the seedy secret family, and we didn't know the other one existed. So sometimes things like that are difficult to explain to people. Can understand. And my parents worked really hard to protect my sister and I from like some of the general darkness that was all around us. My grandma did not understand that point of view whatsoever. I don't know if other people have this like experience having immigrant grandparents who come from like a much harder life than you had, but they always seem mad at you about it. Like, she was always like, do you have any idea how easy you have it? And I'm like, I'm sorry, wasn't that the point? Is this not? Okay, sorry, I'll shut up. You're right. I should stop talking. I've had a very easy life. And my grandma does not care about dropping like huge family secrets on us out of nowhere. I was 11, and she ended a story by saying, and that's why we're pretty sure that your great Uncle Frank killed his second wife. And I was like, Grandma, you can't just say things like that to people. And my grandma looked me in the eyes, and she said, deal with it, you little bitch. I'm kidding, that's not what my grandma said to me. She doesn't talk to me like that. But it's the gist of it, okay? There's this postmodern theory that I really like, which is by telling a falsehood about a story, you actually get a better sense of like what actually happened that day than if you told the straight truth. So what my grandma really said might have been, oh, I don't think that you're too young to know that. But she and I both know that what really passed between us was deal with it, you little bitch. Coming from a family of alcoholics, I've tried to like stay aware of my own tendencies towards addiction. So I did a month without drinking recently, and it was so enlightening to wake up every morning sober and think about all those times that I woke up and I was so hungover, and I was so nauseous and anxious and stressed about all the things I said the night before, and regretting things I did, and dreading the rest of the day. And to realize it wasn't the alcohol, it just feels terrible to be a human. So that did not get a very big laugh. I'm sorry, everybody, that's a sad joke. It's a bummer of a joke. We can move things slightly lighter. I moved here, as I said, like with no job, no connection, no plans whatsoever. And I think that surprised a lot of people who knew me because historically, I have been a very anxious person. And I think that people assume that if you're anxious, that you won't make huge, wild decisions like that. But those people are making a major miscalculation about me, which is that I am also very stupid. I am anxious, but it doesn't regulate me at all. I just have anxiety, and then I also make terrible decisions because I have somehow made it to the age of 26 without understanding how cause and effect works. People talk a lot about what your Patronus would be in Harry Potter. I would be a Chihuahua. Because I'm just constantly shaking and being a tiny idiot. That's really what I relate to the most. I have to say, my mental health has really improved since I moved to the Netherlands. It's been very exciting. I was on the supermax dose of an antidepressant for 5 years, and I had an American psychiatrist who was a 1,000-year-old turtle of a man, and I hated him. He was the worst. And he was like, with the severity of your depression and your genetic predisposition, you'll probably be on this for the rest of your life. And then I moved to the Netherlands, and I went to my Dutch doctor, and I was like, I'd really love to stop taking these. And they were like, yeah, sure, we'll help you do that, no problem. And I was like, oh, wow, who knew that, did you guys know that really great medical care can improve your quality of life? Because I did not. And that's, boy, what a hot take that you wouldn't expect to see in a show about America. Who knew that we had a terrible healthcare system? What a fun fact. You're all welcome for me teaching you that today. I do think in part my mental health improved because after I moved here, I learned how to make better decisions for myself. So I decided that I was going to try a really cool new thing where I was only going to date people who were nice to me. And then for the first 4 months that I was here, no takers. Nobody's interested. And I was like, that's fine. It's not that being single is a bad thing. It's just that if that's not what you're going for, it can get a little bit bleak. And so after, 4 months, I was like, whatever, I'll get rid of the rule. I'll have sex with all of these Dutch people who have been honest with me. That'll be fine. So I got rid of the rule, and it didn't make a difference. Turns out Dutch people are just not that into me. And that's fine. It's okay. I totally understand. I'm American. I'm kind of whiny. I'm not tall enough to be Dutch, but I'm not short enough to be interesting here, so that makes sense. And truthfully, my experiences dating haven't been incredible, so it was kind of okay to let that go. I've found even the perks of being a woman dating men aren't really perks. You're like, oh, I can't wait to outlive my life partner. That'll be a cool 3 to 5 years at the very end. I've also dated men on both ends of the nice guy spectrum. So I've dated just straight up jerks that clearly didn't like women. But I've also dated self-proclaimed feminists who have somehow also managed to make that suck. When you're kissing them, you can just feel how proud of themselves they are because they think you're a three-dimensional person. And there used to be this thing in high school where if you didn't know what to do when you were kissing someone, that you should just write the alphabet with your tongue. And with these guys, you can just feel them writing, I'm not like the other boys. And you're like, we get it, Cody. You're a feminist. Stop talking about how you have sisters. That's not relevant right now. I'm going to make one sex joke, okay? And that's going to be it. I know this is a fancy audience, but when they're going down on you, it's not that it's bad. It's just that every time they come up, they look like they've just single-handedly closed the wage gap. And that's just a lot of energy to be coming at you when you're in a vulnerable position. That's just a lot. And despite all of that, I am actually dating somebody now, which is very exciting. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. It's surprising to me, too. I have accomplished the real American dream, which is tricking a Canadian into loving me. So we're all very excited about it. My mother, most of all. My mom is super independent and very feminist. That's how she raised me and my sister. I have a double-barreled last name because she didn't want to drop her name. So I have my mother's and my father's last name combined. She refused to let my dad propose. She always raised us being like, listen, 2 things are the most important: consent and your independence, okay? You're never going to sign yourself over to anybody else, okay? You're going to be your own woman your whole life. Great, you got it? Good. And then I started dating a Canadian. And she was like, go, bitch, go, get that ring, do it, I don't care. Poke a hole in the condom, do whatever you have to do. And I was like, Mom, that is not cool. That is not a feminist thing to say. And she was like, listen, Trump won once, it could happen again. It's every woman for herself, okay? Go. I do love my boyfriend. He's amazing. I'm punching so far above my weight class with him. And I think that I have finally figured out the trick of dating when you're a sad girl. Because I used to think that if I was a sad person, I could only date other sad people. And all we would do is listen to sad Drake and treat each other terribly. And now with my boyfriend, I've discovered, great hack, date somebody 10 years older than you who used to be sad but isn't anymore. And that way they understand what you're going through, but they're not actively a wreck while you are. It works out great. And now I'm like, what was I doing? I wasted so much time dating boys who were like Tame Impala and sex without a condom are the only things that can heal me, you know? And at the time, I was like, I can heal you. And now I'm like, go to therapy, Peter. What are you doing? Leave young women alone. I have found that it can get jarring when you start dating somebody really wonderful when you've only dated jerks. Like the first night that I was at my boyfriend's house, we were up until like 3 o'clock in the morning talking. And he was like, listen, it's super late. You're welcome to spend the night if you want to, just so you don't have to worry about getting home safely. And I was like, okay, I know this game, right? Just because it's late and we don't want to worry about getting home safely. And then I sauntered into his bedroom, and then he handed me a set of pajamas. I was like, what are you, running a hotel? And then I realized, oh, he wants me to feel comfortable. Like, what kind of mind game is that? You know, I don't get it. Another very nice thing about being in a good relationship is you can actually start to let go of all of the terrible things that the people you dated before have done to you, right? Like maybe that guy Peter who broke your heart your senior year of university. You don't even have to think about him anymore because you're happy now. So the thing with Peter, though, is it was super complicated because like he was dating this girl Dahlia, and then it doesn't matter. You don't need to know about it. You don't want to know about it, right? Because I'm fulfilled now. So just in case, though, I just did a super quick diagram. I'm just going to ask for a hand holding it. Amazing. If we can get it, I don't know if you can see it on the screen. Okay. Great. Amazing. So this is just a super quick diagram of everything that happened with Peter, because I'm so clearly over it. We're just going to start at the top. Inga, if you could just point at the top left from our characters. That's just our main character, Olivia. Wow. Look, her hair looks like a wig, but it's not. And then on the right, upper right, that's Peter. And I was dating Peter. I think she's got it right based on how, yeah. I was dating Peter. And you don't need to know that much about him except that he was a terrible person. And then if we go down further, there's my friend Ben. It's the other bald stick figure. And Ben actually didn't do anything wrong. He's fine. But he was dating this girl Dahlia, who's the lower left. Yeah, great. You're doing such a good job. And I'm trying to not talk shit about other women, so we're just going to stick to the facts here. So her name was Dahlia. We went to university together, and she was a massive bitch. And so, so I was dating Peter, and Ben was dating Dahlia. And then one day, I was hanging out with Ben, my friend, bottom right. And you don't need to point. They're following, I think. I was hanging out with Ben, and Ben and I walked into a party. And what do we see? But Peter was making out with Dahlia, which is so crazy, because I don't know if you've been paying attention. But those were actually the people that we were dating. What a fun fact to develop, everybody. What a great time. Amazing. We're going to go right to the next page. Great work. It's a very floppy notebook. I'm sorry. Okay. So we're just going to, before we add any more drama into things, let's just refocus again on our main character. You probably can't see both of us, but you can picture me. Great. So just to any casting directors out there, just picture like your classic best friend type, sort of cute enough to be on screen, but not cute enough to be threatening, that kind of thing. I don't want to sound desperate. I do know casting directors. It's just the only one I know is my aunt, and she's already given me a firm no on any future projects. Something about how directors aren't looking for women who look like if a witch gave up on herself. Anyway, next page. We're going to flip again. Right to Peter. Just a super photorealistic drawing of what Peter looked like. Just picture if a stick insect was also a terrible person. That's a fun fact about Peter. I don't even know why I gave him, the credit of such a lifelike drawing, but I try to be a generous person. And then to the next page. And this is a blank page to represent the blank page that I have turned over. Because I have so clearly dealt with this emotionally, moved on, and started a new story that I can write here in the Netherlands. Not in Dutch, because I haven't learned it yet. But theoretically, I could one day, which I think is really beautiful. I'm very proud of myself for that. It's actually not quite done. Just one more flip. And that's just super fast if Peter got hit by a truck. That's all. That's all we really needed to see. That's great. I'll keep that. Thank you so much. Amazing work. A round of it. Yes, she did much harder lifting than I did. And all of that aside, I will say that being in a really great relationship has really changed the way that I view things. One thing I kind of wasn't expecting to happen is that I kind of feel, since my boyfriend and I moved in together, like I'm losing my identity a little bit. Because before this, I was a bartender, then I was a professional comedian, then COVID hit, now I'm whatever we call professional comedians who don't work, but it's fine. I'm working now, which is very exciting. But I identified as a badass, okay? That was important to me. I owned 4 separate leather jackets. I wasn't afraid to yell at people that treated me terribly. I was tough, okay? But at home, my boyfriend calls me Muffin. And he refers to our bed as the muffin tray. Because that's where little muffins sleep. And so it's super jarring to get home from a night of yelling at people. I'm like, who are you? What are you doing? Don't talk to me like that. Get out of here. I get home, I slam the door, take off both my leather jackets. And my boyfriend's like, is that a little muffin? And I'm like, it's me, a muffin, I'm home. Anytime I'm out of bed during the night, he's like, what's that muffin doing out of her tray? And I'm like, I'm a muffin, I have to go to my tray. I'm so small and cute. Ah! So that's upsetting. And it's really gotten out of hand in quarantine because at least before this, I left, right? So I was like 50% badass, 50% muffin. But now I never go anywhere. So I'm what you might call a full-time muffin, That's really, really kind of messed with my perception Although, one good thing about this is it has made me rethink intimidating male authority figures for me. Like my boyfriend, he's 10 years older than me. He's a manager. He wears a suit to work and a briefcase. He fires people all the time. Maybe too often, but like all the time. He's like a tough guy. But he's adorable. At home, he has a specific song that he sings for when I put on my pajamas. It's called Snuggly Clothes. And it's a banger, and I love it. But now I'm looking at all the scary men that I know, and I'm like, I know your secret, okay? My terrifying German boss who hates me, he's always like, he's huge, and he has a big beard, and he's always like, Olivia, you are terrible at your job, and I wish that you did not work here, and I would have fired you immediately were it not for labor laws preventing me from doing so. But now I know, I'm sure he goes home to his girlfriend, and he's like, you are such a tiny worsty, you are so adorable, I love you. So now I'm not scared of him anymore. So I've learned some important lessons from it, which I think is exciting. And I've rethought, since I've worked here, since I've lived here, a lot about kind of dreams and how they've changed. Not just mine, but also like the idea of the American dream, right? Which is we usually trace back to the 50s, but was kind of originally like, let's be our own country. And then through the Civil War, a pretty important battle, like let's end slavery. I'd say that was a pretty big American dream. Then the American dream for a while was kind of, let's just collectively act like all of the atrocities we've committed didn't happen. And then it was, a white picket fence, 2 kids and a dog. And I don't have any of those things, But most young Americans that I know have one pretty common dream, which is just to be happy. And I think somehow, despite everything that has happened this year, I kind of managed that. And so I think the lesson that I've learned to any other American that is watching is like, for the real American dream, if our dream is to be happy, laugh at yourself, be self-aware, be kind to other people, and if possible, move to a different country. So, and that's also all of my time. So thank you all so much for having me today. I've been Olivia.